Welcome to the Cyber Sangha podcast. Cyber Sangha is a program of free live broadcasts, launched in 2009 by renowned teacher and author Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Join us as we draw on ancient Tibetan wisdom to discover how to connect with our best self and live to our highest potential. The following conversation, Natural Paths to Longevity, happened on June 28, 2022, as a science and spirituality dialogue with Mauricio, Obón, Dent, Menpa, Phuntsog, Wangmo, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, and Alejandro Chaoul-Reich. This was part of a year-long series, Bring Body, Speech, and Mind to Life. This content is for informational purposes only. Listeners should consult medical professionals for any physical or mental health concerns.
Welcome,
Please use
Cyber
headphones and do not
Sangha,
meditate
to
while
another
driving or operating
dialogue
machinery.
with Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche and wonderful guests. And today it's going to be, again, back to the body, but always the body, energy, and mind. And today it's natural path for longevity. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation having not only Rinpoche, but also Menpa Phuntsog, who's a Tibetan doctor, Dr. Mauricio Obón, a Western doctor, a cardiologist who lives in Costa Rica. And I'll mention a little bit more about them and some of the topics that we will discuss. So Geshe Tenzin Wangyal doesn't need much of an introduction to this audience. He's been an incredible teacher that, having trained in India, being born of Tibetan parents and being trained in a Menri monastery in India, then came to the West. And as he started teaching, he started realizing what we need in the West. And one of the things he realized way before COVID started, that we needed to meet in this cyberspace. So he created Cyber Sangha. And through Cyber Sangha, there's teachings that he does, there's full moon practices that we do, where a whole day we start practicing, one person leading from the US, then moving to Finland, then moving to Colombia, and so forth. Wonderful. So please join us. These are all free events for you, and these dialogues. So for these dialogues, Rinpoche really brings his interest in science and spirituality. And he's been always interested in this from early age. And so today we welcome Dr. Phuntsog and Dr. Mauricio Obón. Dr. Phuntsog is a traditional Tibetan doctor, actually trained in Tibet, in Lhasa. And as she came to the West, she's also the niece of a wonderful teacher, Namkha Nob Rinpoche. And as they founded the Shangshung Institute, she directs the Shangshung Institute, the School of Tibetan Medicine. And she trains Western people in Tibetan medicine, but also trains them, takes them to Tibet and brings them back. And so they can teach this ancient knowledge here in the West. She actually has centers not only in the US, but also in Italy, in Spain, and in Russia. And this is growing. So your work is fantastic, Menpa. Thank you for all your work. And Dr. Mauricio Obón is a cardiologist, also coming from a lineage of cardiologists. His father is a well-known cardiologist in Costa Rica. And he followed that tradition, and he kind of trained here actually in the US. He trained here in Houston at the Texas Heart Institute. And then he decided to go back to Costa Rica, mostly because of choosing what's the right lifestyle for me and my family. So really thinking of not just the medical career, but really his lifestyle. So really brings this together for this. He's now, he's a fellow at the American College of Cardiology, and is also, as I mentioned, trained in Texas Heart Institute, and is recently named the director of the Hospital Metropolitano in San Jose, Costa Rica. So welcome, all of you. Thank you for joining us here in Cyber Sangha. So, as I always like to start, I like to start a little more personal. A lot of people start knowing your work, and we'll get to that. But people like to know you as people. So I'd like to start, Menpa Phuntsog Wamola, if you can say what brought you to this work? What inspired you to devote your life into Tibetan medicine?
Thank you. I would say three things. The one, my brother, 6 years older than me, so he became Tibetan medicine doctor before me. So during his internship, he's checking pulse for family. So fascinating. So I go to the basement and I check a pulse for small animals. So this is first my interest. And then also I really like the herbs through mixing something and I try to feeding things. So this is, I think, the first I'm interested. And then the second, also my family thought would be good if I became sort of like Tibetan medicine practitioner because I'm not that active physically, more like a lazy side. So maybe, based on that, they choose for me. Third, also Rinpoche chose for me, and then he asked to my family they should send me to Tibetan medicine school to learn Tibetan medicine. So these three sort of like comes together. And then I became in this path. But now I really enjoy it. And then I'm really thankful all those my family support and then special Rinpoche's support to have this knowledge. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. And just for clarification to the audience, when you say Rinpoche there, you're talking about Namkha Rinpoche.
Yes, my guru, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you decided within your win, and then you can share, decided to go back to cardiologist, the what your father was trained in. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Alejandro. Well, I think one of the most important things was that actually my grandfather, which was a very lean, athletic gentleman, died surprisingly at a very young age of a heart attack. So he had sudden cardiac death, which is the most severe form of heart disease. He went to bed and never woke up. And in spite of being the dad of a cardiologist, that's just how mysterious and how prevalent this disease can be. So at a very young age, we already knew what the heart was about and its consequences. And then, of course, just seeing how dynamic and how rewarding my father's work was kind of made my decision pretty easy. So that's more or less.
Thank you. Thank you. Rinpoche, I was just thinking how the heart is such a central part of longevity. We like this morning, for those who don't know, I think most of you do know, Rinpoche is leading a retreat, so he's going from Zoom to Zoom, besides likely being at Serenity Ridge. But we start many of the practices with this movement, this life force, Tsalung, that is centered at the heart. So Rinpoche, you really brought this into our practice, our daily practice, because I think it's because it's part of your daily practice. If you want to say a little more on how this really made an impact in your life of really thinking of the heart, besides the heart organ, this life force quality.
Thank you, Mauricio and Member Punsola, being here with us. Thank you, Alex, always and doing great job with hosting wonderful guests. So I guess heart. We think about heart. You can think about heart as a physical heart, and you can think about heart as an emotional heart. You can think about heart as a matter in the core principles. You can think about heart in many ways. And I know cardiologist thinks only the physical heart. so the physical heart, and but I think as we were talking with Mauricio before, the work of Dr. Dean Ornish, who in 80s, one of the earlier, people who have done researches on book called Reversing Heart Disease, for example. So not only people always believed in when you have a heart problem, you eventually die with it. There's no way to cure or reverse or prevent. But Dean Ornish was one of the first people who actually kind of prove all those things. So it comes down to meditation, yoga, lifestyle, diet, and that. And I mean, when you think about yoga, also is a kind of not every yoga. I mean, every physical exercise is good, but there are some exercises that are more specifically designed to work on the lung and heart area, which in our tradition, what in the life force Sanu exercise, second life force Sanu exercise is very much directly connected to the lung and the heart. So whole idea of this exercise is open up our heart. And that means emotionally open up our heart and trying to connect with other people as we open up emotion. Connection with other people is very important part because you don't feel isolation, loneliness, and connecting with yourself, you feel some deeper sense of joy, like just less stress and less tension. So physical exercise is really working toward opening energetic part of your heart, emotional part of your heart, lifestyle part of your heart, relationship your part. It has many different layers. Sometimes many people do these exercise, they look only aspect of the physical part. Yes, definitely, I think life force exercise opens the arteries because you have to hold, you expand that, you're expanding, you're pumping it, definitely that is there. But I think most important part is the emotional part, like I don't know, I'm later on I will ask Mauricio about question about, as people say, anger and loneliness is a risk factor of heart disease. Do you believe in that or no? I mean, later, you can answer that, but I do believe in that. And I think reduction of anger, reduction of loneliness with meditation, yoga, I think it plays a really important role.
Yeah, thank you, Rinpoche. Also, to let the audience know that actually a few years ago, we did a study for lung cancer patients and their caregivers using this particularly life force salung as well as the pervasive salung. And that what we found is not only better well-being, but also that relationship Rinpoche was explaining. So it's good to see in the research as well. So I will go then to Mauricio. And, as a cardiologist, I know many times cardiologists just focus on the heart. I think you look at it beyond that. And so as you tell us a little bit as you see it as a cardiologist, if you can tell us also, maybe also bring in a response about what Rinpoche was asking about anger and the heart, and if you see any relationships there.
Thank you. No, definitely. I think one of the most important aspects of my practice is that I think similar to yours, Alejandro, is that I really like integrating science and other older traditions that may have some answers to health and longevity, and really trying to identify things that go beyond the science, but at the same time they are science, because the way we live is the way we will develop diseases and so forth. So even from Dean Ornish time, he started the vegan vegetarian movement. All these things about fasting, meditation, anger, loneliness, slowly but surely have been proven in science with good objective research. So that is something that for me it is very interesting and very rewarding, that this hunch, this feeling that we had, that there was truly important things in all these are being actually proven in a more Western scientific manner. So, for example, particularly regarding anger and loneliness, there's these blue zones that are the places where people tend to live more. Costa Rica has one of those, and these have been well studied. And beyond the exercise and beyond the diet, there's other components to longevity that have been completely present in each of these blue zones, and particularly regarding to being a member of a community, having family close by. Many of these blue zones also share religious traditions. Many of them are not just members of the community, but members of a church. So there is a lot of literature that depression and social isolation worsens heart disease. And on the other side of the spectrum, we see the people who live the longest are completely the opposite. So regarding to that question in particular, there's plenty of literature, and I think this is something that we need to reinforce more and more often, especially in highly developed countries where people can be particularly isolated.
Thank you, Mauricio. Menpa, I always think of Tibetan medicine really as this, what we would call in the West, this biopsychosocial spiritual, right? It's not just about physical health, but it really has in it the aspects of emotional health, of mental health, of spiritual health. So again, when you think of the heart as the organ and longevity and the aspect of life force, what are the things that you tell your patients, that you tell them in order to live longer and healthier? This is how you take care of your heart and other things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rinpoche, and thank you, Doctor. Yeah, the Tibetan medicine, we look at the heart is the king. There could be also many reasons, as Rinpoche mentioned, like the physical aspects of the king, emotional aspects of king, and also like the more like spiritual. So the king could be also many meanings, but as we consider that the heart is present as the king, and then lungs present as the minister, and upper lungs presenting like a minister, lower loops of the lungs presented as like princess, and the livers and the spleens present as two queens, and then the stomach the kidney present like outer minister, and then the stomach present like a kitchen stove, so on and so forth. So then large small intestine present like two assistants of the queens. So when we look in this one, is it in order to have the good heart function, it's not only that the diet behaves, exercise is not only for the heart, but also the other organs, as before they mentioned, doctors and the Rinpoche both, like diet is a sort of like, and also the certain the behave. So this is sort of like important. So what I'm trying to saying is that the relationship, when we're talking the relationships, so yes, outer relationships, but also relationships in organs, because everything sort of like, like connected to each other. For that reason, what I try to tell people in order to have little longer life, and then the life is a little more meaningful. Sometimes, yes, there's long life, but its life is not something that meaningful or something that pleasant. So long life, the number of the years live is one thing, but the meantime also the qualities of the life. So for that reason, what I try to tell the people, yes, that the breathing, the non-breath, it's I personally found is very useful. I explained to them, do the 9 breathings, and then when we inhaling time, you try to think all the pure and the positive energies inhaling, and then exhaling time, try to exhale feeling like a dirty, toxics, and then all the negative things you try to exhale. So this is sort of like one sense of I explained to them. Another one also I explained to them, because it's our life, especially like a developed country, the material aspect is very developed, but it is that the people's satisfied aspect is very low. No matter which kind of option we have, or maybe there's a lot of options, maybe that causing, I don't know. Because people always feel something not perfect, something. So then these kind of things I try to explain to them, important to feel, understand, as satisfied. Yes, being born as a human is great compared to many other animals. Yes, being born into a country, no big disaster like wars or shorter food, this and that, is great. Yes, being born as a human, but there's no constantly someone torturing, that also great. Yes, human, but then there is plenty of food. So I tell them, try to think in those kind of things, try to feel how I'm a lucky person in this world. Even though I have multi-health issues, mental issues, but still there is access of the medicines, access to the doctors, access to the medicines. Many other countries, yes, if you have problems, may not the access to the medicine or the doctor. So I try to explain to them these kind of things, try to see, discover how I'm a lucky person. This I try to tell first. Second, I try to tell people, because today, another one to make us unsatisfied is our food quality is not good enough. Organic is good, but is too expensive. Many people not able to afford. Common shops food, the quality is it may not that good, this that. So then I try to tell them, if there is option you can do, you try to do that the which you wanted. There's no option, there's no chance to change whatever you desire things. Whatever you have the food in the bowl on the table, you try to appreciate that food, what you have in your bowl, and they try to think who work on this food, who dedicated, who sacrificed, to thank to them, and then who lost insects, animals, to production of this vegetable or whatever. The many insects died somehow. Maybe we don't see, but they died. So try to sorry to their life, and the thanks to who work, and they try to feel this is a nectar. So then that will help. So these kind of things I try to tell, and then meantime I show some like yoga things. Did I talk too much? Yeah. Anyway.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you. You brought
So,
wonderful, wonderful topics. The aspect of meaning is so important. I was recently in a conference on mental health and the importance of purpose and meaning in one's life. I think this is crucial. You mentioned about breathing, about food quality. Um, Also, you mentioned about this aspect of kind of blessing or praying for the food, and that thinking of it as nectar, and thinking of all the beings that maybe are being killed even as we eat, even if they're just vegetables or rice. So I think these are all important. Rinpoche, this aspect of meaning is so important, and I know in all the work you do, in all the practices. So, as I know that you mentioned that now you may be mostly fasting, and we'll get to that as well. But this aspect of prayer for the food or for whatever action that we do, when we take a medicine, what can you tell us a little more about why is that bringing meaning into our life from your perspective?
What do you mean, medicine?
So, for example, let's say, and I'll get back to the doctors as well on this, but let's say many times, for example, if we are taking a medicine, we're also doing maybe the mantra of medicine Buddha, or we're doing an action and we're bringing the dakinis or taparitsa or some, the deities to support us. This sense of feeling the support beyond our lives, and why is that important for kind of the meaning in our lives?
So, first of all, Mauricio, I think I did not know that Costa Rica was the blue zone. I thought it was Sardinia and Japan. I know now why you moved to Costa Rica.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now what I see is it feels for me that what really matters, the most important part of the longevity practice is the self-realization, a connection to yourself, knowing yourself. I mean, basically, I know it's a little complicated. What do you mean by that? I know people will say that, but the connection to yourself. Those who understand it. There's been a big study in Harvard University about, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people or something that they did practice of longevity, who lives the long part. And what makes the people live long was that, I don't remember now exactly, but there was 11 different things. But it's like the air, vaccine, and supplements, and exercise, dietary, many things. But the top number one was social connections. Was none of them was even even air, clean air was not the top number. Exercise was not nothing. As in a blue zone area where people, there is a social connections. And the modern society, we don't have so much. You live in a 300, 400 people, 1,000 people in an apartment. You're not connected with anybody. You're lonely individual walking up and down miserably. That's kind of lifestyle that we have. So I think the social connection seems like the number one. So that was a study in Harvard University, right? We all people believe in science, so it's not just a religious thing. But for me, I think what they really miss, and even in research, is why social connection. I mean, the question is, we know that social connection makes people live longer, they're more happier, they're more connected, but why? So the answer for why is because when you connect with someone, you are connecting to yourself better. People talk about the breath being a life force. When you meditate on a breath, the breath is the closest thing you have. When you become closer to your breath, you become closer to yourself. It's the breath is the way to bring you to yourself. So I think social connection is, I think, very much like that. So one of the reasons why meditation is very beneficial in terms of longevity, also when it's done right, it's because it brings the same benefit what social connection brings to
Mm.
feeling more close to yourself. And we talk about nourishment. Dr. Phuntsog will talk about the food and quality of food and all these things. As Alex mentioned, I've been fasting. I do fast regularly, but at this time, this is my 6th day of fasting. And of course, first I can see my anxiety about wanting to fast. Can I do it? Can I do it that long? Do I really want to do it? While my wife was here at the retreat, until she left, I cannot do it. The food is too good. So when she left, I said, okay, now I can do it. So as I'm doing I feel, it's not, I miss food, but I don't miss so much food. But I do feel the nourishing my body is very important. So usually we think about calories very helpful. You eat and you drink and you get sugar and you energize. You feel that, but I'm not getting any that. That's not my resource of calorie right now. Calorie is not my sources. So strength or energy. So I have to get from somewhere. So I realized that, trying to pay more closer attention to the nature around here and the beautiful serenity retreat, I'm just really connecting with the trees and the air and the sky and everything with the fire and so on. And also, and a few people that I'm surrounded here, and even though I'm many people we're together, but few lamas who are living close to me here in the same sharing the house, I'm trying to just socializing with them, trying to share more, trying to connect more, trying to care about more each other. That sense of connection. I mean, the extra attention that I pay for connection, even though since we are not eating, yesterday I was thinking, since we are not eating, why we have to sit together? Of course we can. This is the normal logic, right? Why we have to hang out together? Because we are not in the kitchen. We are in the kitchen, but we are not eating. But then I realized, no, even that liquid, even just having liquid, let's sit together to drink that liquid. Let's connect with each other. And I really, really feel the connection does nourish a lot. And I feel so much energy. I mean, probably you don't see me fasting 6 days, not having food. I feel a lot of energy.
Wonderful, Rinpoche. So many wonderful topics that you bring. And it does remind me also that for many of us, when we have even a cup of tea or coffee, we're by ourselves in our offices, and that when we sit with someone, it's so different, just that sharing. Um, Now, this aspect of community, Mauricio, you mentioned this already, that there's tons of research talking about community. There's also the research about the blue zones, and there's many, one being in Costa Rica. I think there's 6 or 7 in the world. And Rinpoche mentioned also the nature. Um, what do you recommend to your patients, as they are either for prevention or for to prevention and to think of a long life and what Menpa said, meaningful long life, um, and even once they have some cardiovascular issue.
Well, I think there's plenty of topics there, including the fasting portion, which is interesting by itself. But for purpose and community, you just start with the basics. I mean, what do you like to do? Where would you like to go? And what is it that really brings meaning to your life? When these questions are unanswered, then you have a lot of work to do, because individuals who have, for example, an active depression, if they're actively depressed, they do much, much worse with any sort of cardiovascular problem. So I find that patients that are not in a good spiritual place are remarkably resistant to any form of treatments, either pharmacologically or non-pharmacological treatment. So, if you don't overcome those type of adversities, you can get to the science and you can get to the disease. So, I try to work very closely with my patients. The most basic intervention usually for cardiologists is regular exercise activity. We find that to be the true first step into having that strength and that courage to kind of overcome the other portions. And then you come into we talk about community, family, sense of purpose. But all these things in a 45-minute appointment can be quite challenging. So we find that at least, for example, in the US, it was extremely hard to try and connect with patients. You don't have the time. There's a ton of work going on. So now we have these tools about retreats, and you have that option. And I find that is something I'm using more and more often. You just can't learn all these things about community and purpose and mindful eating or mindful fasting in a half an hour appointment. It becomes quite challenging. So thanks to you and all the wonderful work that is being done in retreats and this type of of work, I'm leaning more and more often to recommending patients go out there and just spend the weekend, thinking about what they want to do in life and so forth, because it is, I would say, almost impossible to really try and heal if the person is if the person is isolated, if the person doesn't have purpose, if they don't have hobbies, and you would be surprised just how often do you have any hobbies? No, what do you like to do? Work, and that's something that becomes very challenging, at least for the traditional Western doctor, because it takes a lot of time to overcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Mauricio. And actually, I want to go back to a couple of points. One is, I think you're actually very lucky that you have 30 to 45 minutes with a patient in Costa Rica, because as you remember, when you were here, maybe you had 6 or 8 minutes with them. The other part is when you think of the top exercise, are you thinking it just physically, or you also thinking mentally and the endorphins and so forth that it creates just by doing exercise, and how it may relate back to the heart health as well?
Yeah, I think exercise brings a true connection. The most basic form of exercises require breathing, for example, and require, being there at the moment, not looking at your phone, not, you have to do it yourself. There's no way. So I find that like the most recognizable way to kind of join mind and body, just really, true exercise activity already has some of those practices. So of course, the physical portion, it's undeniable. We all know that, but I truly believe of exercise as being a driver for mental health, and the way to overcome mental problems most of the time truly just starts like, I know you're in a bad place, but just get up and walk. Try and walk, get some sun, and that, I find that many times is the driver for other good habits and other meaningful things to do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Menpa, let's a topic that has been all of you have been talking about is fasting. And I wanted to ask you both about fasting in the Tibetan tradition, in the Tibetan medicine, but also if you want to talk of some of the aids of fasting that you do by having things like Chulen. So if you wanted to share some of that with the audience today and with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the fasting, according to Tibetan medicine, the fasting is in general, when we're looking, the benefit of the fasting is very highly recommended. Based on the certain age, certain circumstance, and their certain seasons. So the fasting is not recommended to every age or every circumstance. Or you can do fasting, sort of like a 1 day fasting, 2 days fasting, or simply skip 1 meals, or stay with a very light food. So there's different way to explain. But in general, fasting is sort of like to give a time to rest all the systems to recover. Sort of like we go for a vacation, sort of like, when we are so sort of like stressed physically, mentally, this and that, and then we try to go away from our job and then stay somewhere for a few days or whatever. So similar with that, the fasting is sort of like to allow us to recover all the systems, and then cleansing and then unblocking open path. So this kind of, so the fasting we consider is very important. But again, as I said before, fasting is not really recommended. Long-term fasting not recommended with people who after a certain age, like when you reach to the senior age, And fasting is not recommended as a season during the summertime. At the long term, I'm talking. Also, long-term fasting age, also not for the childhood, but autumn and the winter is more easy to, you can stay sort of like a little longer period of the fasting. So fasting can be used as a preventing the disease way or to healing the disease way. So yeah, the fasting is a sort of like important aspect. But there's sometimes also, yes, you try to avoiding the raw materials of the food, like eating 3 meals a day, but you stay with some substance, like evening, you use 1 teaspoon of the garlic julienne. So this kind of like stay with some substance. Or if you want to avoiding the food, you try to get more like kunye, like oil therapies, like a massage. And also, as Rinpoche mentioned, try to be more socialized or try to sort of like move with a very calm. So the fasting goes with the stress, something this kind of then not good combination. So these kind of things we talk.
Thank you, Menpala.
Yeah.
And Rinpoche, you've been doing fasting all day, but you also yesterday mentioned about katub, this kind of fasting that many monks do in the monastery, where they, if I remember well, they eat in the morning, but then they don't eat in the afternoon, or I guess they take only liquids in the afternoon. Uh, can you tell the audience a little bit about those kinds of experiences, and whether, how is it talked about in the Tibetan community?
Well, I think in the monasteries, our two lamas here, they were talking yesterday as we were walking. In the monastery, in our monastery, they do 1 week or something like that. So basically, have breakfast, have lunch, is just skipping the dinner. And it sounds like they make so big deal out of skipping the dinner that every community is, oh, you're skipping the dinner, how you're feeling, are you okay? Bring, everybody's drinking milk, you have so much milk and everybody's drinking milk. I'm not sure about that's really fasting. Yeah. So, but in a traditionally, of course, generally in the monks, they say evening you don't eat, and if it's somehow, more food, more energy. With also even monks, you're not supposed to have more sexuality, like a desire. So that if you skip the evening meal, maybe you're less desiring for sexual activities or something like that. So that something like this has been said. So yeah, I think it just seems there's a saying in Tibetan. It says "Mine thamje sene," like all the humans' disease are caused by food. All the horse disease are caused by, they are running and walking and carrying things and so on. So I do think that, the awareness of the food, what kind of food, quite regular fasting, I think definitely, as Dr. Phuntsog said, being more aware of when to do, what age to do, what kind of fasting to do, definitely, it's important. I have a Tibetan doctor in Mexico, and he recommended, like in Tibetan they call 5 pure chule, tangmangai chule. So we have collected these herbs and honey and all that. We prepared that, and but so it's like basically taking 2 spoons or 4 spoons a day is while you're fasting. That it kind of makes you, not very weak, I guess. It keeps the balance of energy while you're fasting. So I think Chule practice is very much seems like that. But I do really believe this idea of, that what in some sense it seems like they're saying the purest aspect of Chule, the retrieving essence, what they call basically pure retrieving essence while you are fasting, is through the natural nature. I mean, society, social activity, what everybody knows, but I think the nature also, because you do have to have a same relationship to the nature as you have with the people, and some people do have more connection, more stronger relationship with the nature than the people. So when you do have that kind of deep relationship, there definitely is a nourishing, and they are called purest nourishment while you're fasting, because they give you the same kind of energy without any substance, without even food, without pills, without drinks, without any medicine, but they give you that. So I think, of course, it's a different levels of relationship, but I think we should always should be open toward deepening our intimate relationship with the world, nature, people, and with ourselves. So that these are, I think, cause of better health, whole health. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rinpoche. And I do remember that His Holiness, the 33rd man retreats, and he would do Katub all his life since he became the abbot of the monastery. But as you're saying, and as everyone is saying, there's times where it's good to do full fasting, and there's times that it's good to do this Katub. Now, Mauricio, there's in the
Maybe,
West,
well,
in the
just say,
last,
maybe I'll just say one thing. The
yes,
katub, maybe skipping dinner, if they also skip milk, that will be intermittent fasting, probably more or less close to intermittent fasting.
I was getting just to that, Rinpoche. Yes, because so I was getting to that, and I was asking, I was going to ask Mauricio about intermittent fasting because in the last decade and a half, it really has become very popular. Um, and it's become popular even in extreme conditions. So, for example, I know people going through chemotherapy, they're saying that that might be helpful, or going through heart intervention, it might be helpful. So, Mauricio, what can you tell us about intermittent fasting? Where would it be useful, where not, and what you can tell our audience?
So besides from the obvious, which is stuff like every religion has been fasting, and all many animals do fasting as well, which is very, very interesting. The reality is that into Western science, it's become a very popular topic, and whenever you see a topic where nobody makes any money in, and it gains a lot of scientific sound, you should definitely pay attention, because nobody makes money out of people fasting, right? So and it's become incredibly popular in all the academia. Harvard, David Sinclair, many of the longevity people have been doing fasting. So it is truly a fascinating topic, and I think there's several. There's, like you've said, there's ways to do it and purpose to do it. You can do it for healing. You can do it for weight control. You can do it for overcoming any specific issues. And so you can have many forms of fasting depending on your goal. And I think that's the most important thing to realize, that it's not for everybody. It's not for all the same. It does have different ways to do it. And the key concepts with fasting are, first of all, there's this autophagy, which is at some point cells start repairing cells, and free radicals start becoming taken care of, which is really a fascinating subject by itself. And there's also, of course, what is called ketosis, which means that you are using your own fats and your own resources for this natural energy, and that's where this feeling of energy and clear mind and just connection becomes apparent. So the longer the fasting, the better the people feel. Many times, the more energetic and so forth. So there's clearly scientific concepts that are becoming very, very popular, and that people are there's publications even in the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most Western prestigious. There was a full article just about fasting. So the science is there, and it is definitely, I think, an incredibly useful tool on all levels, especially considering the obesity and diabetes epidemic. Particularly for that purpose, I think it has a clear role in many of these diseases. Many of them do very interesting work, even 15-day fasting periods for people who are very obese. So it's present, I think, in many different ways, and it should be done with a purpose. And it really, other than having contraindications, which people were a little bit resistant about it, has more of a useful role. And I would say it's extremely safe. It is very, very safe. So I highly recommend it.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Menpa, something that you mentioned before I want to come back to, which is this idea of kind of as we put things in our body, whether it's medicine or whether it's food, this idea of visualization as that nourishing us as nectar, or maybe I've heard you say before visualizing lights, and Rinpoche also mentioned that even this kind of the highest way of Chulen being nourishing from the elements. So if you can talk a little bit of how, it's thought in Tibetan medicine that actually our body itself can nourish from that visualization of that medicine or food as nectar, or even of the elements as nectar or lights.
Okay. So in the Tibetan medicine, we sort of like understand, or we believe that our body is composed by 5 elements. So we composed on 5 elements. We grown up and with the 5 elements, and then we maintain with the 5 elements. So this 5 element body to maintain or to grow or to function, we need to utilize the 5 element substance to function our body. So mostly what we do is that the reliance on the material aspects of the food we eat, then we function that way. So this is the one thing. But not only that one, but also if we are aware of, if we more sort of like understand or awareness enough, what we can do also, we can utilize that the subtle element which comes through the breathing. When we breathe, also it is we breathing 5 elements. We are not breathing something totally different than the 5 element material, no. Everything what outside they're coming to our body is 5 elements. So Tibetan medicine, also Tibetan Buddhism, or our indigenous religion, the Bon tradition, we say it's like that our body is composed by 5 elements. Also, outer nature is composed by 5 elements. For that reason, this our 5 element body need to be balanced. As long as they're balanced, then everything will function well. How to make it balanced or how to maintain through the outer element. So in generally, we sort of like maintain is one thing. And then sometimes some of those element deficiency case, then we have some symptoms. An example, we say that earth, the water element is a deficiency case, then we have like insomnia, sleeping problems, or difficult to rest. If we have like a fire element access, yes, we have very craving for the food and the angers, and then this kind of energy. So at that time, what we need to do is we need to bring more like water and then earth element. So this kind of like that looking the element and then looking our body functions, that way also we can breathe differently. Or we just breathe, like imagine when I'm inhaling I'm inhaling pure essence of the five element presented by the five colors. I'm inhaling like rainbowish color through my nose, through my mouth, or whatever, through my nose. That enter to my body, re-nutrition all the re-cleaned whole body systems, and then exhale all the dirty things. So this is one thing. Then some people, they do is more collaborate with that. Then you visualizing sort of like the light, and then through that the light coming nutritions, whatever that the supplements to your body, everything purified as a clean nectar. So all those kind of things, I think you can do based on your capacity, or based on which kind of topics you learned from. Like that also yesterday I was talking with another one group. We had a sort of like a course, and then we talked about the fasting. And there's someone said the Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche does a long period of the, like weeks, 10 days fasting. Then I said, yes, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche is Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Better, probably is better, don't pretending same level. To get that level, maybe Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche had many trainings, physically, mentally, also inner understanding. So once we get sort of like a good understanding method, guide how to do, yes, then it's that the five element through the breathing, visualizing light, it's very important, useful. So that also also he talked very often, and then time to time also he does this kind of little fasting things. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back to you, Rinpoche. And as you heard, we're doing these fastings, and yes, of a lot of other preparation. But what do you suggest to your students in terms of maybe starting kale kale, slowly, with fasting, and and the same way Mauricio said, there's not much of counterindications, but we want to maintain a sense of safety, so um, everyone is
Yeah.
doing well in their fasting.
So I think the absolutely safety is the most important. And we are all built differently. We are all different age, different health conditions. We're different. So I think it's important whenever one does particularly longer fasting. Just doing intermittent fasting, skipping dinner, I think is completely safe. So you can do that. But if you're doing like a 10 days or something like that, I would strongly recommend that, have a medical doctor as expert, and also read and find information, collect information, and do more safe way. Yes, yes, absolutely. But I think just, like the most important thing is our relationship to the food, I feel, because when we are very addicted to our food, so sweet, fat, and calories, um, even when you're fasting, it's funny thing is, when I'm fasting, I'm enjoying fasting, but I'm looking for ending the fasting, and I'm already have good plan for the meals. Oh, I have dinner plan, I have a lunch plan, So then my thought is now, okay, well, you're fasting, you're doing very well, that's fine. But when you eat that wonderful dinner, somebody's going to invite you. That all I can imagine, visualize, smell the meal, right? So, but when that meal comes, it's your responsibility to eat the right amount. Then, not like you go fasting and then you break your fast. They say breaking fast is more important. How you break the fast, then it's important. So you don't want it to go crazy. But I think the awareness in general in our life, I mean, just little less portion, skipping a meal. I find it very helpful. Just skipping a meal. If I have a nice breakfast and then I have a nice dinner planned with a nice friend, then skip lunch, lonely lunch. I can skip it because eating lunch alone. Why is a big deal? But rather I'm going to enjoy a nice meal with a friend. So I mean, there's different ways to relationship the food. I think it's important to be aware.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Mauricio, I wanted to come back to that aspect of safety from your perspective, and anything that you can tell the audience in terms of that, of kind of what if they're planning to do a fasting or anything that you recommend in terms of safety.
Well, I think it was just said perfectly well. Short fasts are incredibly safe. I think for intermittent fasting, which 16-8 is the relationship that people enjoy, either skipping breakfast or skipping dinner, is perfectly safe in any way or form. I would say maybe you're diabetic and you're taking insulin, that's all those are considerations. But I think it was so well said that we are incredibly obsessed with meals, and the thought that skipping a meal would actually make you sick has really come into our minds in quite a way. You think, if I don't eat, something's going to happen. Well, this has brought to light the reality that nothing happens. Actually, you get a lot of benefits from just not eating, right? And if you add that to the obsession with sometimes macro